It's a dark chapter in history that often gets overlooked, but its story is crucial for understanding the brutal realities of colonialism and the long fight for justice. Have you ever heard of the Namibian genocide? Today, we're going to delve into the events that took place in what was then German Southwest Africa, a story of resistance, unimaginable cruelty, and a legacy that continues to this day. Let's rewind to the late 19th century. European powers were carving up Africa in what's known as the Scramble for Africa. Germany, a latecomer to the colonial game, claimed a vast territory in southwestern Africa, home to vibrant communities like the Herero, who were primarily cattle herders, and the Nama, who were skilled pastoralists and traders. For years, these indigenous peoples watched as German settlers arrived, encroaching on their ancestral lands, seizing their cattle, the very core of their economy and culture, and imposing discriminatory laws. The situation was a powder keg, with tensions simmering just beneath the surface. The Herero and Nama people were being systematically pushed to the brink. Their land was shrinking, their resources were being stolen, and their way of life was under direct threat. It was an environment of increasing desperation and injustice. The breaking point came in January 1904. Led by Chief Samuel Herero, a respected Herero leader, a rebellion erupted. It wasn't an unprovoked attack, it was a desperate act of resistance against years of colonial oppression. The initial phase of the uprising saw Herero warriors targeting symbols of German colonial authority, including some German settlers. This was a fight for survival, a push back against an entity that threatened their very existence. The German colonial administration, caught off guard by the scale and coordination of the rebellion, was initially on the defensive. But Berlin's response would be swift, and it would be utterly devastating. Germany's reaction was to send in reinforcements, not just to quell the rebellion, but to crush the Herero people entirely. At the helm of this force was Lieutenant General Lothar von Trotha, a man with a notorious reputation for brutality from his previous campaigns in Africa and Asia. Trotha's philosophy was one of total war. He didn't see the Herero as a people to be subdued, he saw them as an enemy to be annihilated. His arrival in German Southwest Africa marked a terrifying turning point, transforming a colonial conflict into a calculated campaign of extermination. The stage was set for one of the most horrific events of the early 20th century. In August 1904, the decisive and tragic Battle of Waterberg took place. General von Trotha's forces strategically encircled the Herero people, men, women, and children. But his plan wasn't just to defeat them in battle. It was far more sinister. He left one escape route open, a path leading directly into the vast and unforgiving Omahit Desert, a region often called the Sandveld. As the Herero fled the battle, German soldiers pursued them, poisoning the few waterholes along the way and setting up a military cordon to prevent anyone from returning. They were deliberately driving an entire population into a deadly natural trap. The Omahik became a vast, open-air death camp where thousands upon thousands perished from thirst, starvation, and exhaustion under the blistering sun. It was a calculated act of cruelty designed to ensure that those who escaped the bullets would not escape the desert. Just as the Herero were facing this horrific fate, the Nama people in the south, led by the legendary Captain Hendrik Witbooi, also rose up in rebellion. They had witnessed the brutality unleashed upon the Herero and knew they were likely next. The Nama engaged in a fierce guerrilla war against the German forces, using their intimate knowledge of the rugged terrain to their advantage. But they too were ultimately overwhelmed by the superior firepower and ruthless tactics of the German army. After Hendrik Witbooi was killed in battle, Nama resistance began to falter. Like the Herero, the Nama people suffered a similar fate, hunted, captured, or driven into desolate areas to die. Following the military campaigns, General von Trotha issued his infamous extermination order, the *VERNICHTUNGSBE fell *. This was no mere military directive. It was a formal declaration of genocide. The order stated, and I quote, "Within the German borders, every Herero, with or without a gun, with or without cattle, will be shot. I will no longer accept women and children. I will drive them back to their people, or I will have them fired upon." This chilling document removed any ambiguity. It was official policy to kill every Herero man and to force women and children into the desert to perish. Although the order was later officially rescinded by Berlin, the genocidal policy on the ground continued with horrifying efficiency. The next phase of the genocide was the establishment of concentration camps. Thousands of Herero and Nama survivors, emaciated and broken, were rounded up and forced into these camps. Places like Shark Island became notorious death camps. Prisoners were subjected to forced labor, building railways and working for German companies under brutal conditions. They were given starvation rations, offered little to no medical care, and housed in squalid, disease-ridden quarters. The death toll in these camps was staggering. People died from exhaustion, disease, and outright abuse. It was a system of extermination through labor, a chilling precursor to the horrors that would unfold in Europe decades later. Even more disturbingly, these camps became sites for horrific pseudoscientific racial experiments. German doctors and anthropologists, like the infamous Eugen Fischer, conducted cruel studies on the prisoners. They took measurements, performed medical experiments on the living, and collected skulls and body parts from the deceased to be sent back to Germany for racial research. This was an attempt to create a scientific justification for their racist ideologies, using the bodies of their victims to prove theories of African inferiority. This grotesque exploitation of human beings adds another layer of horror to the genocide, linking the colonial atrocities in Namibia directly to the racist science that would later fuel Nazi ideology. By the time the genocide ended in 1908, the demographics of Namibia had been violently and irrevocably altered. It's estimated that up to 80% of the Herero population, possibly as many as 80,000 people, were killed. About half of the Nama population, around 10,000 people, also perished. This was a demographic catastrophe. Entire communities were wiped out, families were destroyed, and the cultural and social fabric of these nations was torn to shreds. The survivors were left landless, their cattle gone, their leaders dead, and their spirits crushed under the weight of unimaginable loss. The trauma of this event has been passed down through generations and continues to shape the identity and struggles of the Herero and Nama people today. For nearly a century, this genocide was largely forgotten by the outside world. But the descendants of the survivors never forgot. They have campaigned tirelessly for recognition, for an apology, and for reparations from Germany. Finally, in 2021, after years of negotiations, the German government officially recognized the atrocities as a genocide. They pledged financial aid for development projects in Namibia, but this has been a point of contention. Many Herero and Nama leaders have criticized the agreement, arguing that they were not properly included in the negotiations and that the offer of development aid is not the same as direct reparations to the descendants of the victims. The debate continues, highlighting the complex and painful process of confronting a colonial past and seeking true justice and reconciliation. The fight for a full accounting of this historical crime is far from over. The story of the Herero and Nama genocide is a harrowing reminder of the depths of human cruelty and the devastating impact of colonialism. It serves as a critical, though often neglected, precedent in the history of the 20th century. It is a story of resistance against overwhelming odds and a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Remembering this history is not just about acknowledging the past. It's about understanding the present-day struggles for justice and ensuring that such atrocities are never repeated. Thank you for joining me to learn about this important and somber part of our shared world history. If you found this video informative, please give it a like, subscribe for more deep dives into history, and share your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.